If the most popular guy on campus ever asks you to be his fake boyfriend, say no, my roommate told me once. I laughed back then because people like Liam Anderson didn't even know people like me existed. I was Ethan Carter, a sophomore majoring in graphic design, the kind of student professors remembered because I always turned assignments in early, not because anyone noticed me outside the classroom. My mornings followed the same routine every weekday. I grabbed a medium coffee from the student union, found my favorite corner seat in the library before my 8:30 class, and stayed invisible. Invisible was comfortable. Invisible meant no rumors, no drama, and no pressure to become someone I wasn't. Liam lived in a completely different universe. Captain of the basketball team, student ambassador, honor roll, volunteer, and somehow still the guy everyone wanted to sit beside in every lecture. His smile appeared on the university homepage more often than the school mascot. Freshmen admired him, professors trusted him, and half the campus seemed convinced he could do no wrong. We had crossed paths before, but only in the accidental way strangers do. Holding the same door. Waiting in the same coffee line. Sharing the silent elevator ride. Nothing more. So when someone called my name outside the art building that rainy Thursday afternoon, I didn't even turn around at first. There had to be another Ethan. Then I heard it again. Calm. Clear. Familiar. Ethan. I looked up and nearly dropped the sketch portfolio tucked under my arm. Liam Anderson stood a few feet away, rain collecting on the shoulders of his navy jacket while students openly stared at us from every direction. My first thought was that he had mistaken me for someone else. My second thought was that everyone was watching. He walked closer with the confidence of someone who never questioned whether he belonged somewhere. "Can we talk somewhere private?" he asked. My heart raced for reasons I couldn't explain. We ended up beneath the covered walkway beside the music hall where the rain drowned out the distant chatter of students rushing across campus. For a long moment, he simply looked at me, almost as if he were trying to figure out how to begin. Then he let out a quiet breath that sounded surprisingly nervous. "I know this is going to sound completely insane," he said, "and you have every right to walk away." I nodded without speaking. "I need a favor." I expected him to ask for tutoring, maybe help designing a poster for a charity event. Instead, he looked straight into my eyes and quietly said, "I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend for a while." I honestly thought he was joking until I saw that he wasn't smiling. Before I could find a single word, he added something that changed everything. "You're the only person I trust to do this." I stared at Liam for several seconds, convinced there had to be a hidden camera somewhere under the old brick archway. Nothing about this made sense. The rain continued to fall beyond the covered walkway, students hurried across the quad with backpacks over their heads, and the most admired guy at Westbridge University was waiting for an answer from someone who usually ate lunch alone. "I think you have the wrong person," I finally managed to say. "You could ask literally anyone else." Liam smiled, but it was not the effortless smile everyone on campus seemed to know. This one looked tired, almost relieved that I had spoken at all. "I already thought about that," he replied. "That is exactly why I cannot ask anyone else." I frowned. "Why me?" He glanced toward the courtyard, making sure nobody was close enough to hear. "Because everyone around me already wants something. More attention. More followers. Better connections. Better opportunities. You are the only person I have met who has never treated me differently because of who I am." His words caught me completely off guard. I remembered every accidental encounter we had shared over the past year. The elevator. The coffee line. The library entrance. I had never started a conversation because I assumed he would not remember me 5 minutes later. Apparently, he had remembered all of them. "This is only temporary," Liam continued. "A few weeks. Maybe a little longer. There is a situation I need to handle, and having a boyfriend would solve it." I folded my arms. That explanation raises about 50 more questions. A quiet laugh escaped him for the first time. I know. I will explain everything, but not here. Before I could respond, two students walked past us, immediately recognizing Liam. One of them waved while the other subtly looked at me with obvious curiosity. Liam politely waved back, but the moment they disappeared, his relaxed expression vanished again. That change happened so quickly it almost felt rehearsed. Please, he said softly. Meet me tomorrow after your afternoon class. There is a small cafe off Maple Street. Hardly anyone from campus goes there. I hesitated. Every sensible instinct told me to walk away. My life was peaceful because nobody paid attention to it. Agreeing to anything Liam proposed would instantly change that. At the same time, something about his voice felt genuine. It was not confidence. It was exhaustion. I will listen, I said carefully. That does not mean I am agreeing. His shoulders relaxed as though I had just lifted a weight from them. That is all I am asking. Before leaving, he reached into his backpack and handed me a folded receipt with an address and a time written neatly across the back. 3:30, he said. Thank you, Ethan. He disappeared into the rain before I could ask another question. By the time I reached my apartment that evening, I had almost convinced myself the entire conversation had been some strange misunderstanding. Then my phone buzzed. My roommate Tyler looked over from the couch as I unlocked the screen. It was a campus news account I had never followed, and the newest post showed a blurry photograph taken only an hour earlier. Liam and an unidentified student standing together beneath the music hall walkway. The caption simply read, "Who is the mystery guy with Liam Anderson?" My quiet, invisible college life had started disappearing before I had even given him an answer. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that blurry campus photo and the hundreds of comments underneath it. Some people guessed I was a transfer student. Others insisted I was a cousin visiting from another state. A few confidently claimed Liam had finally started dating someone in secret. Nobody guessed the truth because even I did not know what the truth was yet. The next afternoon, I spent my last class staring at the clock instead of my sketchbook. At exactly 3:25, I walked toward the little cafe on Maple Street, still debating whether I should turn around. The place was quiet, tucked between an old bookstore and a family-owned bakery. It smelled like fresh coffee and cinnamon instead of the crowded student union back on campus. Liam was already there, sitting in the corner with two untouched drinks waiting on the table. When he noticed me, he stood immediately. "Thank you for coming," he said. I almost did not, I admitted as I sat across from him. He nodded as though he had expected that answer. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he slid his phone across the table. The screen displayed dozens of messages, missed calls, and social media notifications arriving every few seconds. "This has been my life for months," he said quietly. "Everyone wants access to me, but almost nobody wants to know me." I looked up. That still does not explain the fake relationship. He took a slow breath. "There is another student named Chloe. She is kind, but people keep insisting we should be together because we work on so many university projects. Every week there are new rumors, new photos, new stories online. She hates it. I hate it. We have both tried correcting people, but nobody listens. If everyone believes I am already dating someone, the rumors will finally stop." I considered his explanation carefully. It sounded simple enough, yet something in his expression suggested there was more beneath the surface. "Why not ask one of your friends?" I asked. Liam smiled sadly. "Because every friendship I have would change the second people believed we were together. Some would expect it. Others would be disappointed. A few would pretend to support it while secretly using it for attention. You are outside all of that." His answer lingered in my mind. Before I could respond, The waitress placed our drinks on the table with a cheerful smile. Liam thanked her by name, and she smiled back as though he had been visiting for years. Once she walked away, he reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded notebook page. "Ground rules," he said. I blinked. "You already made rules?" "Only because I wanted this to be fair." The list was surprisingly ordinary. Attend a few campus events together. Eat lunch together twice a week. No lying to professors or family. Either of us could end the arrangement at any time. I could not help laughing. "You really planned this?" He laughed too, and for the first time since we met, the sound felt completely genuine. Then his expression softened. "Ethan, I am not asking you to become someone else. I am asking if, for a little while, you would let people believe we chose each other." I looked through the cafe window toward the quiet street outside. Yesterday I had been invisible. Today I was holding a list of rules for pretending to date the most recognizable student on campus. Somehow, against every instinct I had, I heard myself say the one word that would change both of our lives. Okay. The first Monday after our agreement felt like stepping onto a stage without knowing the script. Liam met me outside my morning economics class exactly as planned, wearing a gray sweatshirt instead of the polished jackets everyone expected him to wear. Even dressed casually, people noticed him immediately. What surprised me was that he walked straight toward me without hesitation, smiled naturally, and asked if I was ready for lunch as though we had been doing this for years. Every conversation around us seemed to stop. I could actually feel dozens of curious eyes following us across the courtyard. "Relax," Liam whispered as we walked side by side. "You look like you are heading into a final exam." I forced a nervous laugh. "That is because everyone is staring." "They always stare," he replied quietly. "Eventually you stop noticing." I quickly realized that was impossible for someone who had spent 2 years avoiding attention. By the time we reached the student union, several phones had already appeared. Some students smiled. Others whispered. A few openly watched us without pretending to hide it. Liam acted as though none of it mattered. He asked about my design project, remembered details from our conversation at the cafe, and listened with genuine interest while I explained a logo assignment that most people would have considered boring. It was strangely comforting. For the first time since this strange arrangement began, I forgot we were pretending. Then someone interrupted us. "Liam." A cheerful voice called across the room. A confident young woman with long dark hair walked toward our table carrying a tray. I recognized her immediately from campus posters. Chloe Morgan. She stopped beside us and smiled warmly at both of us. "So you are Ethan," she said. "It is nice to finally meet you." I blinked in surprise. "You already know my name?" She laughed softly. "After this weekend? Half the campus knows your name." My face grew warm while Liam looked almost apologetic. Chloe sat with us for a few minutes, and it became obvious that the rumors Liam described had affected her too. She seemed relieved rather than disappointed. Before leaving, she smiled at both of us and said, "I hope people finally let us breathe." As she walked away, I noticed several nearby students looking confused. Their favorite rumor had clearly fallen apart. After lunch, Liam suggested we walk across the central lawn instead of taking the quieter path behind the science building. "More visibility," he explained with an embarrassed smile. "The faster people believe it, the sooner this ends." I nodded, reminding myself that this was only temporary. We talked about professors, favorite movies, and the little bakery near Maple Street. Every topic felt surprisingly normal. Yet every few minutes someone greeted Liam, and every single person glanced at me with open curiosity. Some smiled politely. Others looked shocked. One student even called out, "You two look great together." Liam simply thanked him and kept walking. I expected the attention to bother him, but instead I noticed something different. Whenever nobody else was watching, his shoulders relaxed, and he laughed more easily. It was almost as though pretending in public allowed him to stop pretending in private. That thought stayed with me long after we said goodbye outside the library, because for the first time I began wondering if the role either of us was playing was really the one everyone believed. By the end of the second week, pretending had quietly settled into something that looked alarmingly natural. Liam and I had developed routines without ever discussing them. He waited outside my afternoon classes whenever his schedule allowed. I saved him a seat in the library before our evening study sessions. We shared coffee between lectures, complained about impossible assignments, and discovered we both had an embarrassing weakness for old adventure movies that everyone else seemed to have forgotten. Somewhere along the way, our conversations stopped feeling rehearsed. They simply became part of my day. Campus gossip reached its peak before slowly beginning to fade, exactly as Liam had predicted. Students still glanced at us, but the surprise had been replaced with acceptance. We had become another couple walking across campus, another story that was no longer interesting because everyone believed they already knew it. That should have made everything easier. Instead, it made things far more complicated. One Friday evening, Liam invited me to watch his basketball practice before we headed to the library. I had never attended one of his games, let alone a practice. The gym was nearly empty except for teammates and coaches preparing for an upcoming tournament. From the highest row of bleachers, I watched him transform into someone completely different. He encouraged younger players after missed shots, celebrated every successful pass, and stayed long after practice ended to help one freshman improve his free throws. None of it looked forced. None of it matched the picture people painted of an untouchable campus celebrity. When practice finally ended, he jogged over with his hair damp from sweat and an easy smile that somehow looked younger than usual. "Sorry that took longer than expected," he said while grabbing his backpack. "You could have left." I shrugged. I was interested. His smile widened. "That might be the nicest thing anyone has said to me all week." We stopped by a small diner a few blocks from campus for dinner. The place was quiet, with classic rock playing softly through old speakers and framed photographs of the town hanging along the walls. Halfway through our meal, Liam's phone lit up again. Another call. He ignored it. A second later, another message appeared. Then another. I pretended not to notice until he sighed and placed the phone face down on the table. "You do not have to hide it," I said gently. "Is everything okay?" He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Sometimes I wonder if people would still call me if basketball disappeared, if the awards disappeared, if everyone stopped recognizing my name." There was no self-pity in his voice. Only quiet exhaustion. "I think they would," I replied. "The right people would." He studied my face as though trying to decide whether I truly believed that. Then he smiled, smaller this time but far more sincere. "You always answer differently than everyone else." As we walked back toward campus beneath the glow of the streetlights, a cool breeze carried the first hint of autumn through the trees. Without thinking, I mentioned that the temperature had dropped more than 10 degrees since the previous week. Liam laughed and casually slipped his jacket from his shoulders before draping it over mine. "You always forget to check the weather," he teased. I started to protest, but the warmth of the jacket stopped me. For several quiet steps, neither of us spoke. Then our hands brushed for only a second as we walked side by side. Neither of us pulled away immediately, and for reasons I could not explain, that tiny accidental moment stayed with me far longer than it should have. The following week arrived with crisp mornings, bright blue skies, and the annual fall festival that every student looked forward to. It was exactly the kind of campus event our agreement required us to attend together. By now, walking beside Liam no longer felt unnatural, but every time someone greeted us as a couple, I still felt a strange mix of embarrassment and disbelief. We wandered through rows of student organization booths, sampled hot apple cider, and laughed as one fraternity unsuccessfully tried to convince us to join their charity pie eating contest. For a few hours, everything felt wonderfully ordinary. I almost forgot there had ever been rules. Then we stopped in front of the photography club's outdoor exhibit. Hundreds of candid campus photographs were displayed across large wooden panels. Students gathered around, pointing out familiar faces. Near the center was a picture of Liam and me crossing the main lawn several days earlier. I remembered that afternoon perfectly. We had been laughing because I had accidentally spilled coffee on my notebook, and Liam had insisted the stain somehow made the sketch look more artistic. The photographer had captured that exact moment. We were both smiling without realizing anyone had been watching. "That one is beautiful," an older professor standing nearby commented. "You can always tell when happiness is real." The words settled quietly between us. Liam did not answer. Neither did I. We simply kept walking. Later that afternoon, while Liam stepped away to answer a call from his basketball coach, I wandered toward the campus bookstore. As I browsed through the design section, I overheard two students talking only a few feet away. "I still think it is all for publicity," one of them whispered. "Nobody starts dating out of nowhere like that." The other shrugged. "Maybe. But have you seen the way Liam looks at him? If he is acting, he deserves an award." I quickly turned away before they noticed I had heard them. Their conversation should have been easy to dismiss. Instead, it lingered in my thoughts for the rest of the afternoon. When Liam found me again outside the bookstore, he immediately noticed I had become unusually quiet. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Just tired," I answered, forcing a smile. He accepted the explanation without pressing further, but I could tell he was not completely convinced. That evening, we returned to the library to prepare for midterm exams. We sat across from each other at our usual table, surrounded by towering shelves and the soft rustle of turning pages. At one point I looked up from my notes and caught Liam watching me instead of reading his textbook. The moment our eyes met, he smiled almost absent-mindedly before looking back down at the page. It lasted only a second, but my heart reacted as though something important had just happened. I spent the rest of the evening pretending to concentrate while quietly asking myself a question I had been avoiding for days. Was I becoming attached to someone I was never supposed to fall for? When we finally left the library, the campus was nearly empty, illuminated only by rows of golden lights stretching along the sidewalks. We walked in comfortable silence until Liam suddenly stopped beside the old fountain near the administration building. "Ethan," he said gently, "there is something I have been meaning to tell you for a while." The seriousness in his voice made my pulse quicken before he even spoke the next words. The fountain reflected shimmering circles of light across the quiet courtyard as Liam stood beside me with both hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. For the first time since we met, he looked genuinely uncertain. "I have been keeping something from you," he admitted. My stomach tightened. Every terrible possibility rushed through my mind. Had someone discovered our arrangement? Was he ending it? Had I misunderstood everything? He let out a slow breath before continuing. "The rumors about Chloe really were part of the reason I asked you. But they were never the whole reason." I remained silent, waiting. The truth is that I was already exhausted long before any of that happened. Every day someone expected me to smile, perform, win, or become whatever version of Liam Anderson they wanted to see. I could never tell whether people liked me or simply liked the idea of me. He looked toward the dark water instead of at me. "Then I started noticing you." I laughed softly in disbelief. "I was the quiet guy hiding in the library." "Exactly," he replied with a faint smile. "Every time I saw you, you were completely yourself. You never tried to impress anyone. You never followed me around. You never even acted nervous until I spoke to you that day." I shook my head. "I was definitely nervous. Only after I interrupted your routine," he answered. Before that, you treated me like any other student. His words lingered in the cool evening air. I had spent weeks assuming I was invisible, yet somehow the one person everyone noticed had been quietly noticing me all along. We slowly resumed walking across campus. Fallen leaves drifted along the sidewalks as a gentle breeze carried the scent of autumn through the old oak trees. Neither of us hurried to fill the silence. It felt comfortable, almost peaceful. When we reached the student parking lot, Liam stopped again. "There is something else," he said. "The original plan was only supposed to last 3 weeks. The rumors have already started disappearing. If you want to end everything now, I will understand." I stared at him, surprised by the unexpected sadness behind his calm expression. This was exactly what we had agreed to from the beginning. The arrangement had served its purpose. Ending it should have been easy. Instead, an uncomfortable ache settled in my chest. I imagined going back to eating lunch alone, studying without hearing Liam ask about my day, walking across campus without someone matching my pace. Somehow those ordinary moments had become the brightest part of my week. I forced myself to smile. "Maybe that is the best idea," I said quietly. Liam nodded almost immediately, but I noticed the brief disappointment he could not hide before he looked away. "You are probably right," he answered. "I never wanted this to become a burden for you." We exchanged a quiet goodbye and headed in opposite directions. Halfway across the parking lot, I turned around without thinking. Liam had stopped walking too. For one brief second, we looked back at each other across the distance. Neither of us waved. Neither of us spoke. Then we both continued walking away, unaware that someone standing outside the student center had just taken another photograph, one that by the following morning would make the entire campus believe our relationship was falling apart. The photograph spread across campus faster than either of us expected. By breakfast the next morning, students were already whispering that Liam and I had argued, that we were breaking up, or that the relationship had only been a publicity stunt from the beginning. I tried ignoring the conversations, but they followed me from one classroom to the next. Even professors seemed unusually curious. My phone remained silent all day. No messages from Liam. No explanation. I kept telling myself that this was exactly what we had agreed upon. The arrangement was ending, and life was simply returning to normal. Yet normal no longer felt like something I wanted. That afternoon, while I was finishing a design project in the studio, Tyler rushed through the door looking completely out of breath. "Ethan," he said, "you need to get outside. Right now." I frowned. "What happened?" "Just come with me." Confused, I followed him across campus until we reached the central lawn. Hundreds of students had gathered around the temporary stage where the university was hosting the annual homecoming celebration. Music drifted through the cool autumn air, booths lined the sidewalks, and the basketball team had just been introduced to loud applause. Liam stood near the microphone with the rest of the team, but instead of walking off stage after the announcements ended, he asked the event coordinator if he could say one more thing. The crowd quieted almost immediately. I stayed near the back, hoping nobody would notice me. Liam scanned the audience until his eyes finally found mine. For a brief moment, everything else seemed to disappear. "There is something I need to correct," he said into the microphone. "For weeks, people have been telling stories about my life. Most of them were wrong. Some were harmless. Others involved people who never asked to become part of those stories." A quiet murmur moved through the crowd. Liam took another steady breath. "I asked someone to help me because I was tired of living according to everyone else's expectations. I thought I was asking him to pretend for a little while. Somewhere along the way, I realized he never had to pretend at all. The only person pretending was me." My heart pounded so loudly I barely heard the next words. I kept acting like this was temporary because I was afraid that if I admitted how much he mattered to me, I might lose the best person I have ever met. Students around me exchanged confused glances before slowly turning in my direction. Liam stepped down from the stage and walked through the crowd without hesitation. Nobody stopped him. Nobody spoke. He finally reached me and smiled with the same quiet sincerity I had come to recognize away from cameras and applause. "Ethan," he said softly, "I did not choose you because I needed a fake boyfriend. I chose you because every day I spent with you felt more honest than everything else in my life. If you still want to walk away, I will respect that. But if there is any chance this could become real, I would like to stop pretending." I looked around at the silent crowd before meeting his eyes again. For the first time since all of this began, there were no rules, no agreement, and no expectations left between us. There was only one answer that felt true. For a moment, the entire campus seemed to disappear. I could no longer hear the music from the homecoming celebration or the quiet whispers surrounding us. All I could see was Liam standing in front of me without the confident smile everyone else knew so well. He looked hopeful, nervous, and completely honest. It was the first time I realized the most popular person at Westbridge University was simply another student hoping not to have his heart broken. I smiled before I even realized I was doing it. "I never wanted to walk away," I admitted quietly. "I only thought that was what you wanted." Relief washed across his face so quickly that I almost laughed. He stepped closer, careful to give me every chance to change my mind. Instead, I reached for his hand first. The applause started somewhere behind us before spreading through the crowd until the entire lawn echoed with cheers. I would normally have wanted to disappear from that much attention, but somehow standing beside Liam no longer felt frightening. It felt right. The weeks that followed were surprisingly peaceful. Without the pressure of pretending, we discovered that very little about our daily routine actually changed. We still studied together in the library, shared coffee between classes, argued about which movies deserved another sequel, and stopped by the little cafe on Maple Street whenever exams became overwhelming. The only difference was that neither of us had to wonder whether our smiles were part of an agreement anymore. Chloe congratulated us with a warm hug and joked that campus gossip had finally found a healthier story to follow. Tyler claimed he had known the truth long before either of us admitted it, even though neither Liam nor I believed him for a second. Slowly, the excitement faded, and life settled into something wonderfully ordinary. Months passed, then another semester. Graduation arrived beneath bright spring skies, with families filling every seat around the football field. I stood in my cap and gown waiting for the ceremony to begin when Liam found me among hundreds of graduates. "We actually made it," he said with a grin. I laughed. "I think surviving college was easier than surviving all those rumors." He nodded. "Probably." After the ceremony ended, graduates streamed through the front gates to celebrate with friends and family. Before joining everyone else, Liam gently stopped me beside the old brick pathway where we had first crossed paths countless times without speaking. "Funny," he said, looking back toward the campus buildings. "I spent years believing everyone here knew me." I smiled. "And it turned out almost nobody did." He squeezed my hand. "Except you." We walked toward the gate together, leaving behind the classrooms, the library, the cafe meetings, and the accidental beginning of a story neither of us had planned. Looking back one final time, I realized the greatest thing college had ever given me was never a degree or an award. It was the courage to say yes to one impossible conversation on a rainy afternoon, because what began as a simple favor had quietly become the truest love either of us had ever known. And as we stepped beyond the campus together into whatever came next, I understood that the best chapters of our story had never been written inside the classroom at all.